Education is all about making sure every child is given a fair chance to better themselves for the future. However, that was not always true when it came to special education. For special education, it was as if there were no equality, especially when it was occurring at the same time as the civil rights movement, which always got more attention in the public eye. According to Chapter 3 of the Law on Special Education textbook, between the years of 1852 and 1969, special education and children with special needs began to be excluded from compulsory laws, meaning they could be expelled just because they were weak in the mind or because they nauseated students and teachers because of different conditions. Students with disabilities or special needs were thought to have no benefits from public education, or they would be disruptive to students who did not have disabilities. North Carolina even made it a crime to persist forcing attendance of a child with disabilities after the exclusion from public school, according to the Law on Special Education textbook. However, despite everything they had going against them in public school, parents of special needs students worked together, forming the parental advocacy movement as they tried to get laws created to educate students with disabilities, even though the enforcement of these laws at the time was rather ineffective. In 1954, in the wake of Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court case, these parental advocacy groups came out in full force, arguing the equal protection doctrine be extended to a class of people, claiming students with disabilities had the same rights according to Chapter 3 of the Law on Special Education textbook. The federal government did not get involved until 1959 with the Training of Professional Personnel Act, which helped train teachers with teaching mental retardation. In 1965, the first set of funding came from Lyndon B. Johnson from the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. However, major progress in special education did not come until 1970 with the first freestanding special education law until the Education of Handicap Act came into play. Throughout the 1970s, there were multiple additions of laws and acts pertaining to special education, including the Section 504 of Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Education Amendments of 1974, and Education of All Handicapped Children of 1975. With each passing year, there were more additions to these laws, expanding to different disabilities and giving them different liberties, along with the most recent federal involvement of the IDEA Amendment of 1997, No Child Left Behind in 2002, and IDEA in 2004. However, that does not mean the system is automatically fixed, because we have acts, laws, and amendments that provide special needs children with more rights. In 2006, a school in Virginia County of Henrico failed to provide an autistic child with free and appropriate education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The hearing officer stating the private school would have been the most appropriate option for the boy. At the end of this hearing, it was agreed upon that the school board who failed to provide the education must pay for the private pendant placement. Again, in 2017, Covington Independent Public Schools entered an agreement to ensure the district does not discriminate on the basis of disability in its administration of school discipline. This ensures that the district modifies school policy to avoid use of exclusionary discipline, isolation, or restraint in contact with law enforcement. As a parent, it is very difficult to know the best thing to do for your child, especially when you are in a situation that is new and overwhelming, and when it seems like the whole entire world is against you. There are so many ways that you can stay up to date on special education laws, whether you are getting information about the park accommodations and accessibility features for your child through the New Jersey Department of Education website, or going to parentscenterhub.org, which will inform you about all of the disability and education acts from the beginning to the most recent. Understood.com also provides you with a resource that shows you the difference between the federal laws and what the states must do in order to accommodate those laws. There is a lot of information out there that you guys can access. It's all about getting out there, putting your voice out there, and doing what's best for our children.